First of all, I thank everyone who is watching this video and want to learn something new. This whole photography class will have half sessions theoretical and half session practical. In today's class, we are mostly talking about the basics of cameras. And we will go in depth from session to session. So these all sessions will be useful not only for the people who want to learn something new, and it is also useful for the people who are planning to buy a camera for home purpose or for professional purpose. So if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe now and let's dive into the topic. So in this first session, we are going to talk about understanding of cameras. This session is very much useful for the people who are very new about cameras. First topic is types of cameras and second topic is buttons or switches on a camera. So after explaining about these two topics, we are going to end this video, and next coming videos we are going to talk about the basics of ISO, aperture and shutter. So let's begin our videos with the first topic, types of cameras. So basically there are three types of cameras. One is photography camera, and second is videography camera, and third is multi-purpose camera. So here if you can see, there are multiple cameras and each camera it is having its own features. So basically what is DSLR? DSLR is abbreviated with digital single lens reflex. So why it is called digital single lens reflex? Because of its mechanism. So you are not going to capture light directly. In simple way to understand, a clap kind of motion will happen inside the body. That is how your image or light will be captured. So in order to understanding about camera, you have to first understand how we are seeing with our normal eyes. A light is reflecting from the object to the eye. That is how we are going to see through our normal eyes. That is the same technology cameras or any video camera or any digital camera or any photography camera is using. But the way of capturing between a DSLR and a mirrorless camera is completely different. So here in this image you can see this is a DSLR camera where body is too much thick. So body will be too much thick. Why? Because it is having a mechanism where a clap kind of thing will happen inside the body. In simple way to understand. So in order everything to happen, the body or the mechanical parts inside a body are more. So in order to incorporate too many things inside a body, obviously the end result will be a bigger body. So here if you can see, DSLRs basically will be having bigger bodies because of its mechanism. If you consider mirrorless, they are very thin. Why? Because the light directly will touch the sensor and image will be captured directly through the viewfinder or whenever you click the shutter. So that is going to happen in mirrorless. So mechanism between the DSLR and mirrorless are completely different, or the technology of capturing a photo between DSLR and or mirrorless is completely different. So because of that property, DSLRs are more weight compared with mirrorless. I'm going to explain the differences between DSLR and mirrorless in the upcoming video, but as of this session, you're going to consider these cameras are professional cameras which are used for photography purpose. So by the end point, you basically see this kind of cameras in Canon, Sony, Nikon. So all these major brands are also making DSLRs or also making mirrorless cameras. Low level cameras basically will be useful for home purpose, and costly or full frame cameras will be useful for professional purpose. And coming to the point and shoot mode, here I'm taking an example of Sony, but a lot of brands are also making this point and shoot cameras. But basically Sony is very much famous for point and shoot cameras. So when do you use point and shoot cameras? For the people who want to take close photos to zoom photos, who don't want to sit on manual mode and everything, who want to have everything in auto mode, for those people point and shoot cameras are the best cameras. But basically point and shoot cameras doesn't have great aperture and great depth you will not get in these kind of cameras. Let's talk about the video camera. So basically DSLR and mirrorless cameras, what I'm showing you here, also will be having video mode, but these cameras are basically useful for photography purpose. Here if you can see red or dragon, or these cameras will be useful for professional videography. If you can see any film shooting, you will mostly find this kind of cameras. So in this also a lot of brands are making, Canon, a lot of companies are making. So these cameras are basically useful for film shooting. And coming to the action cameras. Action cameras are the cameras, this also comes under a videography camera, but these action cameras are basically useful for proper video stabilization. So these kind of video cameras may or may not have image stabilization or video stabilization, but these action cameras are meant for video stabilization. So when to use action cameras? So if you are going for a ride, so if you want a camera onto a helmet, then you have to go for action cameras. So basically in the industry, DJI and GoPro are making these kind of cameras. So the last set of cameras are multi-purpose camera. Basically vlogging camera and mobile camera will come under this category. So these cameras will be having different features, but not everything for the max purpose. Either if you take photography, either you take videography, not everything to maximum level. So you can ask me, mobile is giving 100 megapixel and DSLR is only giving 30 megapixel, and what's the difference? So the major difference between the mobile camera and DSLR is the sensor. The sensor size of DSLR way bigger than mobile cameras. And when you're capturing through mobile, either a photography or a videography, the noise when you zoom, the noise means the dots on the video or picture is too much on a mobile camera, where you will not find in a DSLR, and it will give you a proper fine image. And in these types of cameras, if you have any doubt, just comment below and for sure I will answer for all of your queries. Let's get into the main topic here. So after our first topic, types of cameras, we are going to buttons or switches on a camera. So this is a flash which has come along with camera. So when you are buying a professional camera, basically this option will not be there, only this mount will be there to connect an external flash. So here is a wheel, or we call it as mode dial, which will be useful in order to change from one mode to another mode. So auto mode, P mode, TV mode, AV mode, M mode. So like this we can switch to different modes by using this mode dial. On and off button, this will be different from each camera to each camera. Canon cameras will be having this kind of setup. So here if you can see, this what we call it as shutter button. So this button will be useful in order to click the photo. If you can see any photographer clicking the photo, this is the button they usually use. So slight touch will be useful for focusing and hard click will be useful for clicking the photo. So here if you can see, we call it as main control dial. So this will act as if like a volume increase or decrease button in a TV remote. So once after keeping, for example, I kept in 1/4000 mode. If I want to increase or decrease, this will be useful. That circle will be useful. If you turn left side, then automatically it will decrease. If you rotate to the right side, then automatically it will increase. So here we call it as eyepiece or viewfinder. So if you are not seeing from LCD, here is the place where you have to see and click the photo. So here basically in every camera, whatever you see in the viewfinder doesn't mean that it will give the same output. So viewfinder will be actually useful in order to see the picture or the frame, and also you can see whether the object is properly focused or not. And in recent cameras, you can also see the output, how it is going to happen when you add filters. Here this we call it as LCD screen. So here if you can see, there are 4 buttons: ISO button, WB which is white balance button, this is AF points button. Basically we call all these buttons as cross keys. This also will be different from each camera to each camera. So this will be a circle in professional cameras. So here is a button which actually will allow you in order to take a single shot photo or a sequence photo or a timer shot. So this will be useful for exposure. I'm not explaining everything in detail. Why? Because some buttons will be different from each camera to another camera. So here if you can see, this slot will be useful for keeping memory cards, and for some cameras it will be bottom. So for some cameras, battery and SD card slots will be in the same place, and in some cameras it will be different. Like bottom will be battery and right side will be memory cards. Basically if you are in auto mode and if you want literally additional flash to have, there is an automatic flash button. If you click here, automatically flash will open, and when whatever photo you click, automatically flash will come. So here if you can see, there is a button called lens release button. So whenever you want to detach a lens, whenever you want to remove the lens, you have to hold there and turn your lens, and then only you have to remove. I'll also will explain how to keep lens and how to detach the lens in types of the lenses, but this is the basic thing in order to understand about the cameras. So here if you can see, there is a play button. This play button will be useful in order to see the image what you clicked before. And here is a button which is delete button or erase button. This will be useful in order to delete the previous photo. So here if you can see, this is a Nikon camera, this is a Canon camera, but anything in easy way to understand, every signs is same. If you take mobile, if you take Canon camera, if you take Nikon camera, all signs are same. See here ISO, here it is written 400, and here it is written 100, and here it is AWB which is auto white balance, here it is WB which is auto, which is same. So basically it is the same thing, but if you understand this basic, you can literally play with any cameras. It could be Canon, Sony, Nikon or mobile camera. If you open mobile camera and if you go for professional mode, all these functionalities you can see, aperture, shutter, everything you can see. So here are the basics on a camera which you have to know. But in this session, I'm not going to go in detail. Why? Because this will be a big session where I have to talk about shutter and aperture and ISO. So I'm not going to in detail. The number, what you're seeing, 1 by so and so number, that basically is shutter. So this number is actually about the time or fraction of seconds a camera can click a photo. This is 1 by 125 fraction of seconds it's taking a photo. And this is aperture. Basically aperture, you can see, which is next to f and some number. So how much low the number, that much depth photos will come. So f5.6 is there, right? So terminology, some people will say high aperture and some people will say low aperture. But in easy way to understand, if f and some low number is there, then good depth will come. If someone is saying bokeh photo or depth photos, so it means if it is f2.8, f1.8, then that kind of lenses will give good depth photos. So this f5.6 or f4, these lenses will give moderate depth. And let's talk about ISO. Here if you can see, ISO is numbered next to ISO mark, whether here ISO and here also there is ISO. Here if there is any graph, we call it as exposure control. So this exposure control also will talk about metering, and it also talk about how your output is going to come. So if this point is in the center of this graph, then automatically a proper image will come. If it is in left or if it is in right, it shows high or less exposed photo will come. So basically these are all the basics. I'm not going to go in detail in this first session. And here if you can see, this is a quite example. It is showing it camera is in P mode and it's not in manual mode. These are all the numbers or functionalities what your camera is assigned to. So in this session we learned about the types of cameras, and also we learned about what are the buttons, which are the common buttons which are existing in every camera. So in the next session we are going to learn about ISO, aperture and shutter speed and the rules of taking a photograph. So if you like the video, do follow all the sessions which will be useful in order to become a professional photographer. And we are also coming up with some webinar sessions where you can directly ask queries when I am explaining the class, and also share these videos for the people who are planning to buy a camera or who are planning to start their career in photography. So that's all guys. Hope this video is very much useful for you, and it's the first session of this new playlist, and Freshersworld is coming up with much more interesting videos every time for you. So do like the video and subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much.